Summary of The Secret River by Kate Grenville. There is a man named Thornhill who is spending his first night in New South Wales as the story begins. As soon as he wakes up and goes outside his hut, an Aborigine man meets him. They yell at each other, and Thornhill is scared and goes back to bed. The book then goes back in time to when Thornhill was born in 1777 to a very poor family. He spends time with a girl named Sal and her family when he is a boy. He is 13 years old when his parents die, and the next year, Mr. Middleton hires him as a junior waterman. And Thornhill is warm and fed for the first time. But he hates working for the gentry because they don't treat him like a person. He gets married to Sal the day he finishes his training, and a year later they have their first child, Willie. After 2 years, the Thames freezes over, and Mrs. Middleton slips and falls. She and her husband both die within a week of each other. Things start to go badly for Thornhill. He starts stealing after losing his boat and all of his money. He starts working for Mr. Lucas and finds out that Mr. Lucas will be moving valuable Brazil wood. He and his brother Rob come up with a plan to steal the wood. Thornhill is caught by Mr. Lucas while he is taking the wood. Thornhill is put in jail, and Sal comes up with a great story to show that he is innocent. But when he goes to court, he forgets his story, and the judge hangs him. Sal wants Thornhill to pay someone to write a letter for him. The letter works. A Lord Hawkesbury forgives Thornhill and sends him to the convict settlement of New South Wales for the rest of his natural life. He takes Sal and Willie with him. Dick is Sal's second child. He is born in Cape Town while she is on her way to New South Wales. When they get there, officials give Thornhill to her to work as a convict helper. In this system, prisoners worked for private masters or chain gangs while they were serving their terms. Thornhill thinks the land is strange and not friendly, but he quickly finds work in Sydney Cove. There is a man named Mr. King who hires him and tells Thornhill to sneak alcohol past the customs office. Sal is slow to get used to their new home, but he does start a rum bar that does very well. She feeds an Aboriginal man named Scabby Bill who hangs out around the settlement every once in a while. In the cove, Thornhill meets a number of people he knows, including Thomas Blackwood. Blackwood is doing well. He was fully forgiven and now works up and down the Hawkesbury River, which is 50 miles outside of Sydney. He owns 100 acres of land there. Thornhill asks for his ticket of leave after a year, which gives him full freedom. Sal has a sick third child named Bub. Thornhill starts to work for Thomas Blackwood. Thornhill is scared of the rough water and rough land on his first trip up the Hawkesbury River. Blackwood tells him that the locals are watching them from everywhere. There, they meet Smasher Sullivan, a dog trainer. He walks up to them and shows them a pair of black hands that were cut off of an Aboriginal man. When Thornhill looks through Blackwood's binoculars, he sees the man who has been skinned hanging from a tree. Thornhill is angry, so Blackwood tells him that it's give a little, take a little with the people out here. After some time, Thornhill tells Sal that he wants to move to the river and live there. Thornhill keeps thinking about it even though Sal says no. The next year, Blackwood quits, but Thornhill gets his pardon before he does. To buy Blackwood's boat, Sal and Thornhill get money from Mr. King. Thornhill changes the name of the boat to the Hope and starts trading along the Hawkesbury. Willie starts to go with him, and Sal has her fourth child, Johnny. After Sal has her fifth child, Mary, Thornhill finally gets her to move to the Hawkesbury River. This is how the Thornhill family leaves Sydney for the Hawkesbury River in 1813. Thornhill has a gun with him. He hopes it will keep him safe, but he's not sure. The first night, they sleep in a rough tent. He, Willie, and Dick find a flat spot to plant corn the next morning. Willie and Dick are sure that someone has already put something there, but Thornhill doesn't believe them. While the boys run to get the corn to plant, 2 Aborigine men show up in front of Thornhill and clear out an area. Even though Thornhill is scared, he talks to the men like he used to talk to gentry. The men try to talk to Thornhill, but he can't hear them. He feels stupid. the elder of Willie and Dick, tries to steal a spade when they come back. Thornhill yells and hits the old man. The man finally drops the spade, and they walk off into the woods. Sal writes down the weeks on a tree, and Thornhill knows that she is scared and feels trapped. After a few weeks, Thornhill climbs the mountain that is next to his house. The Indians are everywhere and are always watching him. On one rock, he finds drawings of a fish and his ship. He keeps it from Sal. Smasher comes to visit with gifts for the new family. When the kids leave, he starts telling stories about the wild animals and how he deals with them. Sal later tells Thornhill that he will not be as mean as Smasher. Friends of Thornhill's make their way down the river and come to drink at their hut. Sagety is mean, just like Smasher, but Mrs. Herring says it's not worth it to fight the locals. Thornhill was told by Blackwood that the flowers he pulled up to plant his corn patch won't grow back, and the locals will go hungry. After about a month, Thornhill hears that he will be getting prison workers. When he goes to pick them up, he picks a man named Ned and another man named Dan Oldfield, who turns out to be an old friend. Thornhill and Sal want their staff to address them as Mr. and Mrs. Thornhill. The next day, Dan and Ned are working when Dan begs for a break. Thornhill says no and walks around in the shade with a fly whisk. Sal gets mastitis in the summer and almost dies. When she gets better, she makes sure Thornhill kept track of the days she was sick in her book. When Thornhill gets home one day, Willie is yelling that the locals have arrived. Thornhill makes up his mind to talk to the natives at their camp. A woman over 50 tries to talk to him, but Thornhill is too embarrassed to look at her because she is naked. The men try to talk, but Thornhill cuts them off and says that the land is now his and that they can have the rest of the country. Thornhill won't listen when one of the guys says that Thornhill destroyed their crop of flowers. After a few weeks, Thornhill and Sal start calling the locals by names. The old man is called Whisker Harry, and two of the younger men are called Long Bob and Black Dick. Thornhill starts to think that the native people are peaceful after Sal deals with them for bowls and digging sticks. The Native American camp doesn't move, and Sal finally asks Thornhill to talk to Blackwood about it. When Thornhill gets to Blackwood's camp, Blackwood tells him about his idea of take a little, give a little. Thornhill sees a black woman come out from behind some trees with a blonde kid. Blackwood talks to the woman in her own language and tells Thornhill not to tell anyone. In the afternoons, Dick starts to disappear. Thornhill knows that Dick is playing with the local kids, but he doesn't tell Sal. Instead, Bub tells on his brother. Long Bob is showing the kids how to make fire when Thornhill goes to the camp to get Dick. Along with his kids, Thornhill watches as Long Bob starts a fire without flint. When the two men meet, Thornhill changes Long Bob's name to Long Jack because he can't understand it. Dick gets angry when Sal tries to tell him he can't play with the natives, and Thornhill beats him. The next day, Thornhill sees Dick trying to make a fire and helps him. Thornhill lets Dick ask Long Jack to show him again if they fail the first time. More locals keep coming as the weeks go by. People from the area are singing one night, and Thornhill goes to check out the camp. When he sees Whisker Harry dance, he knows that Harry is a big deal among the locals. After going back to the hut, Thornhill shoots the gun into the sky to send a message. Sal, Dan, and Ned are still scared that the locals will kill them. Smasher's dogs will be bought by Thornhill. Hitler shows him a black woman he's holding as a sex slave when he goes to get them. When Thornhill thinks about having sex with her, he feels bad about it. In the end, he doesn't want to buy the dogs. Thornhill comes home one night to find his hut full of people. Smasher tells Thornhill that Spider went to Windsor after the locals stole everything. When people keep stealing from the Indians, Captain McCallum shows up with a plan to stop them. It doesn't work at all for McCallum's plan to trap and kill the natives at Darky Creek. Instead, the governor lets the residents on the river shoot the locals. As the night goes on, Sagety recommends killing them. When Smasher shows Blackwood the ears he cut off of an Aborigine man, Blackwood attacks Smasher. Sal wants to go back to London after this. After a week, Thornhill goes by Darky Creek. He finds a group of Aboriginal people dead from poison there. People from the area steal Thornhill's corn the next morning. He fights them and shoots at them in the forest. The next morning, he finds that his corn patch has been completely destroyed by fire. Sal tells Thornhill she's going as she goes over the ridge to the natives' camp for the first time. Thornhill goes to help when they hear that Sagitt's place is on fire. He finds that Sagitt has a knife stuck through her. They took him to the hospital in Windsor and then went to Spider's new bar to have a drink. Smasher gets the group excited, and they decide to sneak up on the locals at Blackwood's house and attack. He agrees because he knows Sal will stay if the Indians leave. They get to the land early in the morning and start shooting at women and children in their huts. Thornhill doesn't go after guns. He shoots Harry in the stomach after seeing Whisker Harry spear Smasher. The Smasher dies. Thornhill does very well over the next 10 years. He buys Sagitt's land and an additional 100 acres, then builds a stone house that Sal calls Cobham Hall. This is where the Thornhill family lives in style. Sal tries to grow an English garden in Australia, but nothing will grow. Dick doesn't talk to his dad after moving in with Blackwood. Many years ago, Long Jack lived on the land, but he won't take food or clothes from the Thornhills. He tries to touch Jack one day, and Jack tells him in English that the land is his. Thornhill likes to sit on the porch in the evenings and watch the hills and the river. He thinks that the cliffs are a stage, and he is being punished for his actions by being required to observe them for any signs of native people.
About the author. Kate Grenville was born in 1950. Grenville worked for Film Australia as an editor after getting her BA from the University of Sydney. She lived in London and Paris in the late 1970s. She worked as a video editor during this time to help pay for her writing job. She got an MA in creative writing from the University of Colorado at Boulder and then moved back to Sydney. Bearded Ladies, a collection of her short stories, was her first book. It came out in 1984 and got good reviews. Lillian's Story, her first book, came out in 1985. 10 years later, Lillian's Story was turned into a movie, which also did very well with critics. The idea for The Secret River came from Kate Grenville's own grandfather Solomon Wiseman, who was a prisoner of war. He was sent from England to Australia as a punishment for stealing, and he never went back to England, just like William Thornhill. Grenville teaches creative writing and wrote a lot of the books that are used as resources in creative writing classes and groups. She and her husband live in Sydney.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.